What's up, y'all? My name is JR, and for those of you who don't already know, I'm a huge movie and TV nerd. If you're new here, I appreciate you taking the time to check out my channel. I hope you consider sticking around and joining the film community I'm trying to build here on YouTube. So in today's video, I'm going to be giving my reaction and review of the dystopian survival thriller film, The Long Walk. And just so you guys know, this video will contain mild spoilers, so if you haven't gotten out to the theater yet to see this movie, and you don't want to know anything that happens in it, you might want to exit this video now. And with that being said, no more wasting time. Let's get into it. The Long Walk is an American dystopian survival thriller film co-produced and directed by Francis Lawrence from a screenplay by J.T. Molnar about a group of teenage boys competing in an annual contest called The Long Walk, wherein they must walk a great distance until all competitors but one remain, all while maintaining a certain walking speed or be shot to death. The film is based on the 1979 novel of the same name by Stephen King, written under his pseudonym Richard Bachman. The film stars Cooper Hoffman, David Johnson, Garrett Waring, Tut Neot, Charlie Plummer, Ben Wang, Roman Griffin Davis, Josh Hamilton, Judy Greer, and Mark Hamill. The Long Walk was released in the United States by Lionsgate on September 12, 2025. The film has received generally positive reviews from critics, praising its story and performances, particularly from Hoffman and Johnson. Now, at the time of the making of this video, the movie has a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes based on 177 critic reviews, and its popcorn meter currently sits at 85% with over 500 verified ratings. The film has a Metascore of 71 on Metacritic based on 31 critic reviews, and it has a user score of 6.5 based on 32 user ratings. And finally, the movie has a 7.5 out of 10 on IMDb with just over 5,700 ratings. Now, I was literally sitting in a movie theater when I first heard about this film. It was part of preview trailers, if you're wondering. And when the trailer was over, I thought to myself that thematically, this movie could be really interesting. And I immediately thought of The Hunger Games, one of my favorite movie franchises of all time, believe it or not. And I wondered how this movie might stack up to the first Hunger Games film. But then I quickly realized that there was likely no way that Ray, the film's lead character, would be able to stick up with Katniss Everdeen. And so I figured that the movie would ultimately pale in comparison. Still, I went into the theaters cautiously hopeful that we would get in this movie a great post-apocalyptic story with both interesting characters and, more importantly, due to the film's premise, after sitting through a plot that was sure to be one of the elements that the film would need to overcome, a really great ending. Now, the film followed a linear and rather cyclical structure, ultimately falling rather liberally, if you will, into 3 acts. That being a beginning wherein indeed the story is set up, most importantly through the instructions and rules for the Long Walk given to the participants by a character called the Major, the person overseeing the event. The middle, wherein we deal with both bonding and betrayal, as we also learn a lot about the characters almost entirely through the dialogue, and we are made to come to terms with massive loss of life. And finally, the end, wherein we have the long-awaited climax and a really brief conclusion or resolution, if you will. Now, this movie explored themes of adolescent masculinity in that we see examples of male bonding, right? We also see some aggression from these young men and, the formation of identity under what I would consider to be immense pressure. We get a chance to think about totalitarian control and spectacle, again, just like the Hunger Games, as we see how a powerful regime is able to manipulate its citizens by turning their suffering into public entertainment. And it's said in the film that this is done in order to drive productivity, which I thought was kind of interesting if you really think about it. And finally, we get to explore the idea of desperation and hope, as almost all of the featured participants, at least, in the long walk, explained at some point that they applied to be a part of the event in the hopes of winning it, and in so doing, gaining the opportunity to earn for themselves a better life and for their families. Now, I expected this film to, in a way, I'm not even going to hold you, lull me to sleep. Essentially due to the fact that I knew the film was going to be all about a group of kids simply walking from one point to another. And I really was wondering how they were going to keep everybody like focused throughout the film. This thing could really go south really, really fast, just people walking and talking. And, with that being the case, I knew that especially as it pertained to the building of characters, the writers were going to be forced to tell us a lot in lieu of showing us a lot. And that's where I was kind of worried about this film. I'm like, can you sit for 2 hours and just watch a group of kids walk from point A to point Z? And that's where I was kind of concerned. But that said, I think the writers did an amazing job of making us care about the main characters in this overall diverse cast of characters. And speaking of the main characters in particular, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you it became fairly easy early on to tell who would be the last character standing in this anxiety-inducing Hunger Games style event. Because I'm not going to lie to you, it was kind of anxiety-ridden because you're kind of sitting there kind of on the edge of your seat wondering who's going to be the first to get shot, and so on and so on. And, despite the absolutely fantastic job that the writers did with the small writing here, I got to give it up to them. It was really important to knock the small writing out of the park, and they did just that. But I do have a few major narrative beats with this film. First and foremost, I think this was a film that could have maybe used a bit more flashbacks to break up some of the monotony of the walk itself. I'm not going to lie to you guys. That walk I was getting tired and I wasn't even walking. As well as giving us a chance to see some of the important characters living the life they left behind. I think you would have cared a lot more about the characters, especially the ones who die earlier, if you could just see a minute or two of, what their life might have been like, even if you had to do it rapid fire fashion where they just kind of explain in broad strokes who they were why they applied, what their family life might have been like, and what they hoped to gain by winning. I think that would have gone a long way. If you're thinking about a story that kind of did that a little bit, you can think about Orange is the New Black, where we kind of got a chance to see the women living their lives outside of the prison. In order to break up the monotony of watching these women inside of the prison. Now, granted, I understand this was a movie, that was a TV show. You've got, a million episodes to kind of stretch that stuff out. But even if it was just like rapid fire very quickly, a minute or two, I think that would have helped out greatly here. Secondly, I thought the violence shown on screen was a bit gory. And in addition to the violence, things like watching the characters literally go to the bathroom without stopping long enough to be killed, that was a little bit borderline gross, right? I mean, there's literally a dude dropping a deuce, squatting in the middle of the street, dropping a deuce, and you literally kind of can see it. I mean, they don't go close up on it, but it's kind of like, bro, what are we doing here? I just thought that was a bit much. And, I think both were done as a means to, again, keep the audience engaged throughout. So in this particular case, I guess I understand that maybe the need for the on-screen violence, but that other stuff was just way overboard in my opinion. And then third, there was a pretty big narrative oversight at the beginning of this film during the setup, and it caused what I would consider to be a narrative calamity at the climax, which ultimately led to what I believe could have been a powerful ending, but it just ended up being grossly mismanaged, in my opinion. Now, overall, I'd give this film a 75%, or a 7.5 out of 10 if you're thinking IMDb score. And instead of a C+, I'm going to go with a B- here for a letter grade. Because I would say that despite the percentage score, the movie is a pretty good one. I think it was pretty well written, and again, it reminds me so much of The Hunger Games, but I want to warn you guys that it shouldn't really be viewed as a copy, as Stephen King's novel was published long before the Suzanne Collins franchise ever hit the shelves. That said, if I had to compare this movie directly to the first Hunger Games film, and I was to ever be asked which film would you rather watch, or which film do you think is better, which film would you choose or take or whatever, one's got to go, right? I would take the Hunger Games movie over this one, mostly due to the much more meticulous world building. And, we got a sense to kind of see Katniss's situation before she volunteered as tribute. And we didn't get that here with my man Ray. And like I said, the world building was just much more detailed, something I think this film just didn't nearly have enough of. But if you're in the mood for a character-driven story about friendship and sacrifice, right, set against the backdrop of a dystopian American society set in what they're telling us is the near future, so scary thought, right? But if that's what you're looking for, I believe that this film can deliver that in spades. But what do you guys think? Have you had a chance to go see The Long Walk yet? If you have, what did you think of how the film used the long walk to progress its plot? What did you think about the lack of flashbacks? And more importantly, how did you feel about the film's ending? Let me know in the comments. And for those of you that might be new to the channel, be sure to like and share this video. If you really like the content, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way you'll be notified whenever I drop a new video. You can also now support the channel by leaving a super thanks. If you should be so inclined, I'd greatly appreciate it. Also, feel free to subscribe to my new Shorts channel for additional content. The link is in the description. In addition, be sure to go and check out themadScreenwriter.com for more television and film reviews and info on my upcoming film projects. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I got screenplays to write, and I'll catch y'all in the next video.